Many Jews spend large amounts of money on the Arbat Haminim, the 4 species, that we use on Sukkot. Is this justified?
In many cases, the answer is no. The expenditure that many people put out with regards to Arbat Haminim is not justified. It is often based on misconceived notions of hidur, that is to say, humroth, stringencies, or looking for certain features in the Arbat Haminim, particularly with regards to the Etrog, for which people believe there is some value in putting out more money to find that particular kind of Etrog with that particular feature, when in fact there is no such hidur. The hidur is entirely in their heads. And it would be clearly much better, much more correct from a Torah point of view, from a halachic point of view, to spend their money more wisely, more correctly, and to give some of that money that they're putting out on Arbat Haminim to true purposes of sadaqah, of charity, that is to say, giving money or food to the needy, to people who are truly needy, or alternately to support authentic and very significant places of Torah study, where Torah is taught, where Torah is learned, where Torah is disseminated, whether it's a yeshiva or any kind of institution which spreads the words of Torah in any fashion. That is a much more correct use of the money and the blessings that Hashem gives to us, rather than putting out money on spurious humroth and hidurim. And I will give a couple of examples. Some people are willing to spend quite a bit of money in order to find an etrog which has absolutely none of the inner peel, that is to say, the skin, a kind of very thin, light brown skin which exists on the fruit in its natural condition, which eventually dries and falls off. And sometimes there are 1 or 2 spots of this inner peel which are still visible on the etrog, and some people consider this to be a great hidur, to find one which has no such marking on it. And the truth of the matter is there is no such hidur. This is the natural state and look of an etrog. There is no need to try and scrape it off. In fact, it's not even a good idea, because that one can actually cause true damage to the etrog. What matters with regards to the wholeness, the completeness of the etrog, is that there are no holes, there are no part of it is missing, even a very small part. And that is one of the most important features to look for in etrog, that is not haser, that is not missing any part of it, no piece was somehow gouged out by mistake, there are no holes in it. But this very thin, ephemeral skin, which sometimes one can find on 1 or 2 spots of this kind of inner peel which remains on the etrog, this is not, to remove this or to find one without such a peel is not at all a hidur, and certainly does not warrant putting out all kinds of fanciful amounts of money. There is, of course, a lot of extortion. That's probably sounds like a strong word, but that's in fact what is going on. People are taking advantage of God-fearing Jews who wish to do the right thing, but people do not always know what the right thing is. So do not look for things that shouldn't, as if they should not be on the etrog, when in fact they are part of the etrog, and that's exactly how an etrog should look. There is no need to be concerned about 1 or 2 or 3 points, places on the etrog which has this light brown peel on it. Another example of a spurious hidur is the following. Some people like to buy what is called in Yiddish in Ashkenazi circles an Etrog mit a Gartel. In other words, a Gartel is the kind of belt that some people wear during davening, and some Etrogim one can find they have a kind of waist to them. In other words, the shape of the Etrog is such that it is wider at the top and wider at the bottom, and in the middle it has, as it were, a belt or a waist to it. And some people see this as a great hidur. It is true that even in ancient times, Etrogim, some Etrogim certainly had this feature. We know this from ancient mosaics from the 3rd and 4th centuries onwards in ancient synagogues, Batei Knesset, in Eretz Yisrael, where Etrogim are depicted, and one clearly sees some of the Etrogim depicted do have this feature of a waist, as it were, as if it's wearing a belt. What people do not know, and what I myself also did not know until quite recently, till a very intelligent young man explained this to me, is the following. The reason for that kind of waist, as it were, on the Etrog, where it is narrow in the middle, has nothing to do with a hidur or a particular strain of Etrog. Rather, it is the result of a virus which attacks some Etrogim, and this virus leads to this result. Whether a person wishes subjectively to consider that that more narrow waistband, as it were, of the Etrog to be aesthetically pleasing or not, is a matter of personal preference. It's an entirely subjective call. It has nothing to do with halakha, and there's nothing objectively better about it or worse about it. It is a fact that it is caused by a virus, but it is certainly also a fact that it is not a hidur. And I have seen more than once people looking at Etrogim and being willing to put out extra amounts of money, sometimes rather significant amounts, in order to find such an Etrog. So be aware of this simple fact. This is not a hidur. This is no, Chazal never mentioned this as any kind of hidur, even if Etrogim then too sometimes displayed this feature. And this is nothing at all to do with the miswah of Arbat Haminim. On the other hand, the miswah of giving sadaqah to aniyim, to the needy, and to supporting true Torah study and dissemination in the world, these are very important, these are very major miswot. One cannot even begin to compare the relative importance of true sadaqah or Torah study in the world, as opposed to putting out amounts, unnecessary amounts of money, exorbitant amounts of money, on spurious and invented or simply mistaken hidurim with regards to Arbat Haminim. So let us learn to focus our attention and our resources on the ikar, on that which is truly important, and not on the tafel, that which is not important at all.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.